Hello and welcome back to this month's episode of Unstoppable. The GW Colonials are off to a busy start this fall season, and we've been along every step of the way. From women's volleyball to men's golf, we've got an episode you won't want to miss. I'm your anchor, Isabel Schmaler, and to my left, my partner in crime, Parker Jensen. So Parker, what do we have going on this episode?
Well, Isabel, we'll start off the show by giving you our in-depth analysis on men's and women's soccer, men's water polo, and women's volleyball. Then we'll head to our rundown segment, giving you a lightning-fast look at cross-country, tennis, and men's golf. And finally, we'll wrap things up by bringing out our expert reporter and avid Giants fan, Savannah out here to put me and Isabel on the hot seat in our hot take segment.
All of this and more on Unstoppable.
Welcome back. Last time we looked at women's soccer, we were questioning whether or not this team could keep up with the momentum we saw at the beginning of a 5-1-2 season. But I don't think anything could have prepared us for this. The women are now 12-1-3 and are showing no signs of slowing down. And to put this into context, last season they went 10-8-1, with their greatest weakness being on the road. This year they're nearly perfect against away teams, with their only loss coming from William & Mary in the first game of the season. And if you're not on the bandwagon now, you should probably get on it. They've outscored their opponents 34-17, nearly doubled their shots per game against their opponents, and have doubled the assists. Their only weakness so far is with fouls, but even that hasn't slowed them down. The star of the show, if we had to pick just one, would be Rachel Sorkin. She's put up 21 points, 8 goals, 5 assists, and leads the team in shots on goal. And players like Sevilla Pavan and Megan McCormick have been driving forces on offense, and Maria Perea is second in nearly every category for this women's team. So what do we credit their success to? Well, it's a ragtag team of seniors that put up points with loads of help from sophomores that makes this team's future even more exciting. There also seems to be this chemistry that has lit a spark in the team this year. And the stats will tell you everything you need to know. They're an offensive powerhouse with help coming from whoever can get to the ball. And their defense isn't half bad too. I mean, they've held their opponents to only 17 goals in 16 games. In short, I'm high on this women's team, and I'm excited to see how they can close off their astounding season. And with that, we bring in our soccer analyst, Noah Ulsterlitz, to give us his take on the season. Noah, what are you looking at with this women's team?
Well, Parker, they have an incredible offensive engine. They've scored at least 1 goal in every game, and they're averaging a little over 2 goals per game.
So what is it that's keeping them going? You've talked a little bit about having a pretty set team. Who are some players that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, the 2 transfers from Miami, both Rachel Sorkin, as Parker mentioned earlier, and Sammy Neiman, are in their first season at GW, and they're performing incredibly well. Sammy is leading the team in assists, and Rachel is pacing the team with 8 goals.
Well, it's interesting. If you look at every player on this team, I mean, so many players contribute time and time again. And sure, you have this set mentality where it's the same players over and over again. But hey, I mean, if it works, why fix it? It's very interesting to see. But what are you looking at specifically with the younger players on this roster? Because I know we have a bunch of seniors kind of trying to lead this team forward, coming into the future and going into, I guess, the end of the season as maybe the team's starting to bring in these younger guys, these players. What do you see? What have you seen that's kind of optimistic going into the future?
Well, I have a lot of optimism for next season and in the future seasons here. The scoring has been incredibly balanced by age. 3 of the top 5 goal scorers are sophomores this year. That gives them at least 2 more years at GW. So I'm incredibly confident that they can get even better as their years progress.
And so what do you think the next 2 games that they have going here at on the Vern with George Mason and then with St. Louis, do you think those are going to be easy wins given their pretty good record so far?
I think the George Mason game should go fairly well, but St. Louis will be the toughest opponent they've had all season. If any team can stop GW from winning a conference title during the regular season, it will be St. Louis. And I have a feeling that we're going to see them again in the conference championship.
Alrighty, well, Noah, thank you so much. Isabel, what do we have for the men's soccer team?
Well, it looks like not much has changed from the last time we talked about the men's soccer team, who were going 2-5-1 and are currently going 5-9-1 to date. There have been some tough losses since the last time we talked, and most of them could have been easy wins, including the 1-2 match loss to George Mason, who held the same record as GW until beating us. Now, the next loss may not seem as surprising, as they lost 0-3 against University of Virginia, who's currently ranked number 1 in the conference. And Despite UVA's clean sweep, GW did manage to maintain a pretty cohesive line of defense going up against UVA's tough offense, given that they did take 21 shots against senior goalkeeper Noah Lubin, who ultimately secured 6 saves. Despite the ongoing losing streak and the particularly tough loss against UVA, the team went on to defeat St. Bonaventure in the team's first A10 conference victory. It was a historical night for GW as first-year Tom Kuklin kicked off his career with the only goal of the night, ultimately securing a victory for the team, something the team's definitely not used to. Celebrating came to an abrupt end as the team fell short to Duquesne 0-1, only to move on to another loss against Howard 0-1. The defeat to Howard is very similar to the defeat against George Mason. George Mason and GW had the same 2-5-0 record, just like Howard, although Howard does have a slight one-game winning advantage to GW, but statistically, GW could have easily pulled a victory if they hadn't let their defense slip, which seems to be the deciding factor in a lot of these, quote, easily winnable games. Despite the 2-game losing streak, the team went on to defeat Davidson on their senior night 2-1, with first-year Liam Ensom scoring the only 2 goals of the night, kicking off his career with the Colonials and ultimately winning the match. After that, the team secured a 2-0 shutout against St. Joseph's with goals from Hauker Hilmarson and Alhaji Touré. With this sort of record, it's hard to tell just how exactly the team will do going ahead in the A10 match play for the remainder of the season. Let's turn it over to our very own Bella Corshane, who got the chance to interview some of the players.
Thanks, guys. I'm Bella Corshane on the Mount Vernon campus with GW Unstoppable, talking with the GW men's soccer team. I'm here now with Colin Anderson, a senior on the team. So, Colin, it seems like this season hasn't gone as well as we'd hoped. Is there anything that you think the team can do differently going forward?
I feel that we just need to score more. We've created a lot of chances. We've had great opportunities to score. We just need that final piece, putting the ball into the net.
And is there anything you're particularly looking forward to in the next few games?
Just looking forward to, playing my final games and, trying to win and to get into the tournament.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm here now with Tom Cooklin, a freshman on the GW men's soccer team. So, Tom, 7 of the 8 goals scored so far this season were scored by seniors and grad students. You're actually the only non-senior grad student to score a goal. What does this mean looking forward to next season?
Obviously, I'm very pleased with the opportunity the coach has given me. As for a freshman, I've got a lot of minutes. For next season, all I want to do is improve on what I've achieved this season by scoring more goals and more assists and contributing more to the team.
Is there anything you think the team needs to improve on looking forward?
So going forward as a team, I think we need to score more goals, as clearly we haven't scored enough goals. Defensively, we're very solid, so going forward, we just need to score more goals. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom and Colin. For GWTV Unstoppable, I'm Bella Corshane. Back to you.
Thanks, Bella. Leaving the Vernon, marching into the tunnel now with men's water polo. Their season's been similar to that of last year's run, but if you look at their record, this team looks to be slumping a little. But take a closer look and you see that this team's actually living up to a new set of challenges. Last year's team bested most of their competition, albeit against unranked opponents. They fell to nearly half their matchups against top 25 teams, losing to San Jose State and Bucknell. This year they compete against more ranked opponents and have come close against big-name competition like Harvard. This year's team is actually quite similar to last year, except for now their expectations. The season's harder. There's way more away matches and they lost some valuable seniors. But what they do have is an experienced core of seniors this year that know what it's like to win, and a large supporting cast to boot. Junior Andreas Louvi is far and away the most valuable player on this team, with 72 goals, 43 assists, and 26 steals on the year, leading the team in those categories. Senior Andrew Mavis and sophomore Henry Moss aren't too far behind him, helping facilitate their offensive production. The schedule should spell an easy couple wins over the next few weeks and should take that momentum into the MAWPC Championship in late November. Our own Gus Eckstein took the chance to talk to the men's water polo team about the rest of their season. Gus?
Hey y'all, I'm Gus Eckstein here for GWTV's Unstoppable, today with Gabrielle Samonti of the GW men's water polo team. Every game is very intense, but was there one that was the most intense for you this year? And is there anything from that game that you took forward to define your season or help you to improve in your game?
We had a couple intense games. Probably the most intense one were the Harvard one and the Princeton one. But I like to start from the Princeton one and take it because not only was an intense game, but we played through our difficulties, we played through the problems, and we play a really good style of water polo. And I want to start from that because, as I said, we need to reboot, and that is a great game to take a look at and start from there to work and improving for the future.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Now here with junior Andras Levi. So at the beginning of the year, your goal was kind of to make it back to a similar place where you were last year with a chance at winning that national championship and getting back in the tournament. Have your goals changed at all, or is it just kind of taking it one game at a time? What's your perspective?
Currently, we're definitely taking it one game at a time, especially because last week we didn't do well against Navy. So for now on, we're focusing on one game at a time. But I feel like our goals haven't changed at all. We're still trying to win our conference championship and then go to the final 6 of the NCAA tournament or even further. But right now, we just got to focus on the games upcoming this weekend.
So what would you say to someone who wants to come watch a water polo game?
If you come and watch a water polo game, don't worry, you'll be confused. But I feel like the atmosphere is really nice and definitely going to see some high-quality water polo here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The women's volleyball team continues to keep us on the edge of our seats as they move on through their A10 match play. However, with this team's unpredictability, it's difficult to say just how far they'll go. After a long-fought match against one of our crosstown rivals, George Mason University, the team ended with an unprecedented 3-2 set victory, despite lagging behind at 23-15 at one point in the game. Senior Skylar Ayat, a familiar name on this show as she's continuously come out as a lead scorer on the court from the beginning of the season, secured a career high of 33 kills and 3 aces, ultimately carrying the team to victory after what could have been a clean sweep from George Mason. The team went on to defeat both Duquesne and LaSalle University all in the same weekend, starting their A10 match play with off no better way with a clean sweep, with a clean 3-0 set sweep in both matches. Skylar Ayat yet again anchored the team with 20 kills in the first match against Duquesne, along with senior Jordan Young securing 10 kills in the LaSalle match. The winning streak came to an abrupt close when the team fell short to St. Louis University in a 3-0 set loss, of course with the Unstoppable family cheering them on from the stands nonetheless. Despite the sudden drop, though, Skylar Ayat continued to maintain a dominant role on the court with 12 leading kills, begging the question of whether or not Ayat will continue on with the same momentum moving forward in the A10 journey. The losing streak continued as the team went on to play the University of Dayton, ultimately losing in a 3-0 set loss, but were able to recover from the 2 defeats by defeating LaSalle in a 3-2 set victory, with Ayat scoring her 1,000th career kill. Here's where the unpredictability comes in. The team went on to secure a clean sweep against Norfolk State in a 3-2 set match, ultimately losing. It seems as though the team's momentum starts to fizzle out after a couple games, leading to these what seem like sporadic losing streaks, placing most of the pressure on the senior leadership, particularly Skylar Ayat, who's continuously picked up the slack. At this rate, it's difficult to tell just how exactly the team will proceed as they move forward in the A10. And here to break it all down with us is our very own Savannah Gaida. So, Savannah, what is the deal with these random losing streaks?
So guys, I think the biggest factor to play into this unpredictability is the mental aspect of the game. If you look at their record, they are 6-3 at home and 3-3 away. And we've been to the home games. The energy is insane. You've got an entire row of fans with GW painted on their stomachs. You got people stomping their feet on the stands. We went to the game where Seabrass was performing. It was almost like a basketball game, you know? It was insane. It was really fun. And there was a great emotional connection between the volleyball team, players on the bench cheering on the players on the court. So there's a lot of support between the teammates. And I believe that when they have that confidence, it gives them a certain drive that ultimately influences their ability to play and leads to a victory.
Well, I think there's a lot to look at here. I think a lot of positives here. You look at Jamison Lee. She has 645 assists. The next best is Bella Bowman with 53. I mean, that just shows how dominant Lee is and how much of a contributor she is. So she's one of the big players. And we're looking at Skylar Ayat, 277 kills. Next best is Patty Vale, and she has 142. So you see that these are the 2 big leaders on the team, and they can continue this going forward. And I think these are 2 valuable leaders that can really kind of build it down and break it down. So I think you have, again, these leaders, and you have a lot of young players on the squad as well. What have you seen with those young players in particular? Is there anything that you see with that? Is there anything that you see in chemistry when you're looking at them in play?
Yeah, well, they've got great chemistry amongst each other, and I think that from a physical aspect of playing the game, the team does a really good job at coming in with the kills and with assists. Jamison Lee is a power powerhouse when it comes to assists. She's got 645 for this season so far, and she actually reached 2,000 total career assists earlier this season. So they're doing great in that sense. I do believe, however, that they do have some small errors they need to work on. For example, Patty Vaya has 44 service errors, which is not a whole lot. And when you look at the team stats overall, they have 110 compared to their opponents that have 100. They average 142 service errors per team. So in that sense, the team isn't doing so bad, but there is still room for improvement there.
And I think kind of like what Parker was saying, you know, there's definitely a lot of potential with the new players on the team, and like you said earlier, there's definitely a spark with the team. And when we were at that game, you know, it was so fun to see the team bond, and there's definitely an energy with the team. But again, you know, we mentioned Skylar Ayatt several times in the rundown talking about this team, and I'm concerned. And again, like you said with Patty Val, she does have a couple service errors, but it's these older girls on the team who are really anchoring them. And my concern is, well, you know, going forward, is there too much pressure on them? Will they be able to keep up this momentum going forward?
I think they definitely will be able to. Coming up, they've got all A10 play, and they also have the A10 championship in Rhode Island. That is the weekend of November 22nd to the 24th. And they are currently playing a lot of A10 opponents, and they're not doing so bad. They are 5-2 in conference play, and their losses are not complete blowouts. I want to point out one specific game. They lost 0-3 against Dayton, and I know that that's not a great game, but you have to look at the fact that Dayton was voted likely to win the A10 championship in a preseason poll, and they also are the defending A10 championship team. So they are a powerhouse in the A10. They dominate. They are undefeated currently with the record of 7-0. So for GW to come close to beating them, the first set was 26-24. They just missed a win by a hair. So GW just needs to come together and fix those little mistakes and keep up that great energy between the teammates. And I think that they are well on their way to making their mark in the A10 championship this season.
Well, I think despite the concern, there's a lot of room for optimism. Savannah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
We're taking a quick commercial break now, but when we come back, we'll enter the lightning round with our rundown segment. Stay tuned.
Hi, Colonials. Did you know there are hundreds of ways for you to volunteer with GW? Each year, over 1,500 alumni, parents, and friends contribute thousands of hours to make our community stronger. There are countless ways you can volunteer, so it's easy to choose an opportunity that is most meaningful to you, like connecting with students and alumni based on your student involvement, identity, or personal interests, getting involved with your local alumni network, mentoring a current student via our online mentoring platform, connecting with prospective students through undergraduate admissions opportunities, serving on an industry network leadership council, becoming a social media ambassador. The list goes on. No matter where you are in the world or how much time you have to give, you can connect and volunteer with GW. And the best part, it's easy to get involved. Just visit alumni.gwu.edu/volunteer to learn more about these and other opportunities. Because of your service to GW, you are able to make a direct impact on the lives of former, current, and future students. We look forward to working with you. Raise high.
Welcome back to the Rundown, a quick look at some of your favorite GW sports. Let's pick up the racket now and look at women's tennis. They recently came off the West Virginia Invitational, competing against the Mountaineers, Ball State, Navy, and Delaware. Sophomore Alexandra Vesicalio carried the team in singles matches, besting all her opponents, and freshman Sarah Bodiez wasn't too far behind her, accomplishing the same feat. In fact, it's actually these two have been faring the best this season, with Vesicalio going 6-2 in singles matches and Bodiez going 5-0. Doubles matches are a similar story for Bodiez, as her pairing with Luciana Kunkel fares the best this season, going 6-4. As they enter the ITA Atlantic Regional Championship, the main challenge will be maintaining high doubles play, including better performances from Vesicalio in her paired matches.
Switching to a team that has already competed in the ITA Championship, the men's tennis team is coming off of a fairly disappointing outing. In their singles matches, the men's team had only 3 players get out on the top 128. To be fair, 2 made it to the round of 32, both in hard-fought matches. Freshman Ryan Navarro came out to impress, almost besting the #1 ranked Moamba of Liberty University. The whole, however, is not as great as the sum of its parts, which can be concerning when you realize that most of these teammates are sophomores. The optimistic standpoint is that this is a young team with plenty of room to grow. The negatives are that there's no winning culture left over from their golden years in 2015 and 2016, and that only a handful of players are actually contributing to the success. As they enter the UNCW invite, expect a reliance on their heavy hitters and watch their backcourt to see if they can actually get something going.
The men's golf team has had a pretty decent start this season after proving themselves both at the VCU Janney Invitational and at the Marshall Invitational, but has run into some roadblocks coming in 13th place out of 15 teams at the WVU Invitational, totaling a final score of 926, which isn't so great when compared to the first place winner, West Virginia's score of 864. There were, however, some decent individual performances from golfers like Clifford Thompson finishing at the top for GW with 15 over par in a final of 231. The team continued to struggle at the Elan Phoenix Invitational, going 14th out of 16 competitors with an overall score of 862, but senior Adrian Castagnola came out on top for GW, placing 19th out of 97 overall competitors. It seems like individual performances for the team have been what's keeping the team together, whereas overall performances is lacking. The team will take a 2-week break before they head to the Hawaii Kalanapali Classic Collegiate Invitational. We wish them the best of luck and wish we were going along for the ride.
Let's jog on over to the men's cross-country team, whose season has been exemplified by the rise of their newcomers. Despite falling 18th out of 24 teams at the Princeton Invitational, first years Juan Muskoka and Ryan Focus led the team, finishing 56th and 96th respectively. Give the team credit though, they lost a significant chunk of their core this past weekend, leaving only a handful of runners to pick up the pace. The story with this team is patience. Patience in their young class of freshman runners who have taken this team by the horns and dragged it to the finish line. While the season is far from ideal in terms of placement, there has been improvement with their times, and it'll be fun to see them compete as they head into the A10s.
And finally, to a team that's actually been making moves, the women's cross-country team has put together a squad that no longer needs patience, but is ready to compete now. Suzanne Haim's in her prime, finishing first at the Princeton Invitational this past weekend. The women took on a field of 207 runners, but had 4 finishes in the top 30. Margaret Coogan and Mariah Morrow followed closely behind Haim, finishing 14th and 19th respectively. The rest of the team didn't disappoint either, as a large majority finished within the top 75 and only 2 falling below the top 100. On an even bigger note, the women beat out LaSalle, the biggest competitor going into the conference championship. I got a chance to sit down with Suzanne Haim, who credits some of her success to the workouts with the men's team and the chemistry she's built within the locker room. As the women take on the A10s, all eyes are on them to come out on top.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we're back, we'll jump into our hot take segment that you won't want to miss.
Universities like George Washington play a critical role in hosting debate and discourse on events of the day.
The right answer is not to refuse the other. The right answer is not to say, get rid of this religion. It's not part of us. It's wrong.
I think that the story of America is the story of race. So when I think of the questions that I'm asking or the stories that I'm going to write, I'm thinking, okay, well, what are we learning about our country?
Well, I think the likelihood of him being indicted is close to 100%. There was a lot of hurdles that had to be cleared in order for that to happen.
One of the reasons that Donald Trump is president is because there is such a frustration with the way that Washington functions.
Sympathy is one thing, but empathy is the language of recovery, and it's something that's without a doubt instilled into every person that's in recovery.
It's never lead with the positive, it's always lead with the perceived negative.
Well, that is part of the problem. I mean, I actually would agree with you on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One of the things that we have seen that is most under siege in this country is the notion of civil discourse, and we here at GW, among other things, very much want to stand for that.
This is truly an only at GW moment.
Welcome back. It's time for Hot Takes. I'm your host, Savannah. The rules here are simple. I'll ask a question to our two anchors, and they will get in arguments with each other for your viewing pleasure. Let's start off with men's soccer, who currently hold a record of 5-9-1. Recently, they celebrated 9 players, more than 1/3 of their current team, in their senior day game. Positions for next season need to be filled proactively, but the issue remains. How will the team's poor performance this season impact their recruiting for upcoming seasons? Parker, let's kick it off with you.
Well, I don't think their poor performance this year is really going to help them later on in the future. Now, I understand there's a good young core that's established on the team right now, but I just think the seniors that we have right now, and we have a handful of juniors that are going to be continuing their career into senior year, they haven't been efficient, they haven't been doing too well, and it's against mediocre opponents. I mean, you look at the game against American, right? They tied an 0-6 team. The only tie that American had was against GW. There's been time and time again where poor performances have been shown. The coach hasn't been shown to really switch up the lineup as much, and so that might be concerning to recruits who are concerned that they're young. Are they going to get their time to shine? Is it going to be the same set of players that we see time and time again playing, and I won't get my play time? I think there's a lot of concerns here that we need to address, and I just think that the taste in the recruiters' mouths from this season might not help them going forward. Later on, we might see, but I think for next year, it's going to be difficult to get people.
Well, Parker, I definitely see where you're coming from, and you did bring up some good points. I will say, like we mentioned before, there are some mediocre losses, like you pointed out, but there are some great freshmen who have definitely proven themselves this season. Like we mentioned before, Liam Emson and Kuklin. Both of them were some of the only scorers in the 2 games that they ended up, I think one was a loss and one was a win, but regardless, these are some of the only scorers in these games that, they might end up being mediocre losses, like you said, but there's definitely a lot of potential there. And I think that in terms of recruiting, yes, there are only a few good freshman players now, but going forward, those freshman players are going to be the new faces of leadership on the team. And I definitely think, we got to be optimistic, and hopefully recruiters are going to be smart, and we're going to be losing so many key players going into next year. So I definitely think that there's a lot of room for improvement, and we should stay optimistic.
Great points, guys. Isabel, I love the optimism, but I'm going to have to give this one to Parker. Unfortunately, the record here prevails, 5-9-1, and you're right, tying with American. They should have at least scored at least 1 goal in that game and won. And I also think that they need to establish those younger players, and there should be more diversity in the lineup. Moving on to our next question. Last spring, Suzanne Haim, a runner on the women's cross-country team, finished 5th in the women's 5,000-meter run of the A10 championship. She even beat her own personal record by shaving more than 30 seconds off her previous best time. Currently in her senior year, she's already been named A10 Women's Performer of the Week due to her outstanding performance in the Princeton Invitational. What can we expect from her in the upcoming A10 championship? Isabel, the floor is yours.
Well, Savannah, I think the answer here is simple. I mean, like you said, A10 runner of the week, broke her own personal record. I mean, come on, she's bound for greatness. And on a more personal note, Suzanne was actually the first person that I got to interview on Unstoppable ever. And I think not only is she a great athlete, she's a great person. And I think regardless of her running and her training, she continues to just put on this ray of positivity to everyone she encounters. And I think that's what anchors her when she's competing and when she's just living life. So I think that, only good things ahead for Suzanne, and I'm really excited to see how she does for the remainder of the season.
It's hard to disagree. I do have to agree on this one. I think anything aside from a top 10 finish at the A10 would be disappointing. Just considering her constant, she keeps getting better every year, right? She's constantly improving, and I think now is her prime, right? And so her work ethic is unlike anyone I've seen. She's now working with the men's cross-country team. She's building up the rapport with them. She's being a leader on this team, and it's her final year, right? And so when you're going that final year, you're going that final stretch for cross-country. Now, I know she's running track in the spring, but it's her last year running cross-country. She's going to leave it all out on the field. She's going to do everything she can to get the top 10 finish. And like I said, anything past that, I think is going to be a little bit disappointing. So I'm going to harp on your note a little bit, but I think mainly it's because of her work ethic, her working with the men's cross country team, and just her as a leader. It's her final year. I think she's going to go out there and she's going to kill like she always has.
All right, well, I'm glad you guys could almost finally agree on something. Isabel, you got this one in the bag. Just because of your personal connection and Suzanne being on Unstoppable before, Isabel, this one's yours. In true spooky season spirit, I want to hear your Halloween costume ideas and favorite trick-or-treat candy. Parker, let's start with you.
All right, now the segment's called Hot Take, so I have a really big hot take here. Favorite treat is actually, I'm really in the mood for a payday. I know it's not going to be what people are expecting. It's not what people are, normally vying for, but, there's nothing, just it's caramel, peanut butter, salt. What you can go wrong with that? In terms of costumes, haven't decided yet. Well, think of something. Actually, funny enough, for a class, I have to think of something that's tech-related, media-related. So I think I'm going to go something along those lines, potentially, But, I think for candy, you're looking at Kit Kats, you're looking at Snickers, but mainly, I'm going to go with payday.
All right, Parker. Well, I'm just going to leave that payday comment over there. My favorite candy has been, always will be Jolly Ranchers. They are amazing during all seasons, not just Halloween season. So I'm just going to go with that. You can't go wrong with Jolly Ranchers. In terms of Halloween costumes, though, however, I agree with you. I still have no idea. I do know that I want to wear some sort of wig. Wigs are very trendy right now, especially pink ones. So I think I'm going to incorporate a pink wig into my costume, but don't know exactly how it will come to fruition. So stay tuned to see what my Halloween costume is.
All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, I disagree with both of you.
Oh.
Payday, Jolly Ranchers? Really? I'm going to give it to Isabel because Jolly Ranchers are way better than Paydays.
That's fair. That's fair.
But my personal favorite would be a Snickers. You've seen the commercials. Eat a Snickers. You're not you when you're hungry. I feel much better when I eat a Snickers.
Well, that's all we have time for today.
Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at GW-TV. You know the drill.
Or check out more packages and exclusive content like our interview with the cross country and tennis teams over on our Instagram at GWTV_Unstoppable.
We'll see you next time.